Am I adulting good?
I just don't know what I'm doing. I can't breathe.
I feel so anxious.
This is what it's all about.
I just don't know what I'm doing. I can't breathe.
This is what life's all about. I just don't know what I'm doing. Oh, what's going on?
I don't understand.
Welcome to the Am I Adulting Good podcast, where we talk about all things self-help and the reality behind trying to adult to our best ability in this world. We're your hosts, Brianna, Kriss,
And I'm Caroline Savransky.
and we are both in community mental health, so we've seen some pretty interesting things.
Deciding to take on the journey of self-betterment is daunting and hard. Let's make the mistakes together and share what does and does not work. Because hey, are any of us doing anything right? And if we are, how would we even know?
We will cover a variety of topics like the old self-sabotage, toxic relationships, finding yourself after a breakup, or perfectionism. Special guests will be invited for most episodes to share their experiences and wisdom.
This podcast is aimed at anyone and everyone who needs a little bit of help getting their shit together and wants some company in doing so. We're in it for the laughs, but if we can learn something on the way, then that's good too.
Am I adulting good?
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Am I Adulting Good? Today we have a very special guest, Locke Hughes, who is an incredible journalist, a wellness inspiration, who has written for some incredible magazines such as The Medium, and is currently the deputy editor at The Well. But I don't want to give too much away because I'm sure we'll hear a lot from her herself. But first, just wanted to say welcome. Welcome to Am I Adulting Good?
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to chat about adulting and adrenal fatigue, two of my favorite topics.
We were just chatting before about how we need some serious advice on both of those things. And I feel like it's a whole epidemic that so many young people face those types of issues of adrenal fatigue, and we don't even know what's happening to us. So we can't wait to get stuck into that. But before we get into all the good stuff, we always ask the people that we're interviewing, what does adulting mean to you?
Adulting to me means living a life that feels good, healthy, and fulfilling to you. And I think adulting mostly means living a life that you've created yourself. You know, I think that we grow up sort of living the version of our lives that our parents created for us. And then we're in school, which is sort of a different version of our lives. And I think when you look around and you feel like, you know, oh, wow, I've really built this life for myself and I love it and it's fulfilling and it's healthy, then then you're an adult. Like, congratulations. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah, and what a life you have built for yourself.
What an amazing...
How did you...
Oh, so I was going to say, what an amazing take
Yes.
on adulting, to be honest. That is such a beautiful way of putting it, because, you know, we've heard so many different things of it's people taking responsibilities and it's people, you know, paying bills and all the rest like that. But to actually have that sense of accomplishment when you look around and it's like, I deserve this. I have put myself into this situation. That's such a wonderful way when thinking about adulting.
And hey, I mean, I'm 32 and still figuring it out. So there's no that limit.
Well, I mean, I remember I look at, you know, some people around me or some people that I know, and, you know, even like the littlest things of when they don't clean up after themselves and they don't have respect for the little things. And a lot of the times they haven't actually put in the effort to appreciate what they have coming from themselves. Which is where I think there's that discrepancy sometimes between looking after what you own to just, I guess, disrespecting it and not even caring. So I think those kind of come hand in hand.
Definitely, definitely.
So you graduated with honors in English and wanted to
You've done your research.
plus of course, and then you wanted to get into media from there. But what got you interested in health journalism and that aspect of media and journalism?
Definitely. It was a bit of trial and error. Absolutely. I graduated knowing that I wanted to be, you know, a writer in New York, which is such a cliche. But again, hey, I've made it happen. It's happening. but I didn't discover my passion for health and wellness until a couple years into my career. I started out working for women's magazines, sort of old school service journalism. But I think it was a great place to start my career because I really learned the nuts and bolts of the publishing industry. And then, being like 23, 24, living in New York and having grown up in Florida, which is somewhat similar to Australia in that I was always outdoors, always on the water, always doing activities outside. I needed that sort of release living in the city. So I started running, and that was really where I discovered my passion for running. I started doing some half marathons and just sort of fell in love with the whole healthy living world. And it was sort of when boutique fitness studios were starting to pop up around New York. People were getting more into yoga. People were talking more about their health and wellness. And I was like, this is a great niche or field of journalism to get into. It's something that I'm personally interested in, and it's really fun to write about, and really fun to research. And I'm so glad that I got to do that for my career for so many years. I got to interview amazing, amazing people in the health and wellness industry, from, whether it's Gabby Bernstein or like Dr. Mark Hyman or any of these big names in wellness. It's been a really cool journey learning about it from them.
That's so wonderful. That is honestly the dream of turning a hobby into a job. I know I'm very much a person. I've gone down the rabbit holes of searching into health and wellness and, whether it's beauty things or exercise routines, and to actually turn that something that interests us so much into how to live our best life into something you can do for a career, and to be so successful at it as well. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you. And I love, the other part of that is not only do I get to learn about it, but I get to share what I learn with an audience, which is, I really can't imagine anything better. But that said, I just was going to say, like, I actually have shifted a little bit away from journalism in the last couple of years, just because it's a tough industry to be in these days. But I've been lucky enough to find a job working on editorial content for a brand. So now I'm sort of in-house at a wellness company called The Well, amazing wellness center in Manhattan. And I run our editorial platform, and I look at our Instagram strategy and sort of handle all the content there. So it's sort of like going in-house for a brand, but still getting to do what I love.
Yeah. And I guess, this entire journey of yours hasn't come without its challenges and difficulties. And I guess that kind of brings us to our main sort of topic of today, which is adrenal fatigue. And, you've written about it. You've written about how people can identify it and work with it. And that's kind of what we really want to get into, because it's so underseen how much people thrive for these goals and ideas and dreams in life. And when burnout and adrenal fatigue come hand in hand with that. So I mean,
Definitely.
for you, if you're happy to share with us about some of your experience with adrenal fatigue, first kind of going into what it actually is, that would be awesome.
For sure. Yeah, I think it definitely stems back to my early 20s when I did fall in love with running, and I think running can be so healthy, but I don't really even run anymore. And I still feel like even healthier maybe than I did in my 20s. And I think it was a journey of finding what works for you. And I think people who run a lot or like force themselves to do a lot of endurance, that can be a factor in exacerbating adrenal fatigue. But essentially, adrenal fatigue is the result of long-term chronic stress on your body. And it overstresses the adrenal glands, which release cortisol. And cortisol is a stress hormone, so that doesn't sound very good to begin with. And when your body is continually pumping out cortisol, it wreaks havoc in the rest of your body's systems. And it can be a good thing. It can be the result of, fight or flight, that response. If a lion is coming at you, your body's going to pump out cortisol so that you can run away. But if your body's doing that all the time, which honestly, living in New York City, I think all of us experience some sort of low grade stress all the time. And God, especially after the last year, it's not a good thing. And so your adrenals get stressed out and basically can't handle the stress anymore. And symptoms include brain fog, fatigue, gaining weight for really no reason, and just sort of feeling off. Like you sleep a lot, but you never feel refreshed. And I think a lot of, and craving, not so great for you things, whether it's sugar or salty things. And, I think a lot of people experience this, but none of those symptoms are like anything a doctor is going to diagnose you with. And unfortunately, adrenal fatigue isn't even recognized as a disease in conventional medicine. So if you go to your doctor and you say, I think I might have adrenal fatigue, a lot of doctors will say, oh, that doesn't even exist.
Yeah, Caroline and I were actually just talking about this beforehand, saying that, if you don't mind me sharing, Caroline, but she's getting her bloods taken and things like that, and they're not they don't do all the tests that you want them to do. They do the stock standard. These are your hormones, this is your blood count level, but they don't look at, what are my cortisol levels, like, I'm relaxed now, are they high, are they spiked, and different things to really assess those type of situations.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to go to more of like a functional medicine doctor or sometimes a naturopath who will do those more in-depth tests. And I remember I did a cortisol test, which entailed spitting into a tube, like throughout different points of the day, so that you could measure your cortisol levels at different points throughout the day, which is really the only way to do it.
What I found with, battling fatigue is this huge insensitivity around the topic. People just saying, oh, come on, everyone's tired. You just get on with it. And then especially when doctors say that, like, look, I don't know what it is. You just got to get on with it. What was your experience when you were going to doctors and going to functional doctors and saying, like, I'm fatigued, or even speaking to your friends? How was that taken? Did people take you seriously?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say a lot before I had sort of done my own research. I remember there was a certain time when I was with my mom for a few days and I was so tired and I was in a bad mood and she just got so mad at me. And I was like mad at myself. I was like, I don't know, Mom, but like, I just can't deal with this. And I just had to go like lay down. And she was like, thought that I was just being lazy or being, insensitive or rude. But looking back, it was just like this physical, I think some people who write about adrenal fatigue call it a fatigue blanket. It's almost like this comes over you in the middle of the afternoon. So there's definitely a bit of that, like with my own personal relationships, just sort of being in a bad mood. And then I was lucky enough to find a blog post, a blogger, Lee from America. She's a food blogger, wellness blogger. She wrote about her experience on Instagram with adrenal fatigue. And I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I have. So then I sought out a functional medicine doctor in the place I was living at the time. And he was so great about it. Like, he was very reassuring and definitely made me feel validated, like a lot of doctors probably wouldn't. And I actually remember going to also see an endocrinologist who checks hormone levels. And she, on the other hand, was very much like, everything's in order, you're fine. Whereas the functional medicine doctor who takes like another level was like, oh, well, this is not ideal. Like, even though if it's in normal range, it's at the low end of the normal range, and there actually could be some more optimization here.
Don't you just hate it when people don't validate your experience? And that's like when things become really dangerous. Though I definitely think I'm at that, bordering peak end of adrenal fatigue at the moment. I even came home. Yeah, I've got so many jobs going on, crossing over this week. I'm nearly finished thesis, which has been a long 3-year journey. But it's at that point where I even came home last night and I just started to cry. And my housemate was there. I'm just like, I just need to lock myself away. And you get to the point where somebody asks, how are you? And you're like thinking, how dare you ask me that question? Like, do you not even know? Like, you get angry at people for even, because you don't want to tell them. They don't want to hear. And it's just so funny. I'm like, why am I so angry all the time right now? And I know it's also combined with lack of sleep, but it's amazing what it does to your mental state. I'm like, I don't feel like myself right now.
You're aware of it, because hopefully you can, catch it and sort of make some changes before it gets any worse.
Yeah, definitely. And there's very good reasons why I'm at that state and all the rest. Like, it's, they say, oh, you're doing this to yourself. Yes, I am aware of this. Thank you. But I guess, how did you get out of it after seeing all these people? What did you do to just really crack it and prioritize yourself and your health in that state?
Yeah, I think the good news is that it's almost about doing less rather than doing more when it comes to adrenal fatigue. So that is maybe some good news to people who are used to doing so much, and having that sort of type A personality where it's like, got to do this, got to do that, got to wake up early and work out. Like, I think it was a big mindset shift when my doctor was like, you don't have to go out for a run every day. You probably shouldn't be going to spinning classes. Like, instead, just do strength training or do yoga and practice meditation and mindfulness and just really slow down. So I would say that's like number one, is just truly slowing down in all parts of your life and going to bed early. Because I'm not gonna lie, I was also like a bit of a partier in my 20s. And so would just, I think staying up late on the weekends is not great for your sleep habits during the week. So it was really like a consistent sleep routine also really helps. And then of course there's a bunch of supplements. You know, I'm not a doctor, so I wouldn't tell people to take anything in particular, but there's definitely, you can look up some herbs that are supposed to help with adrenal fatigue. Everybody should get like their vitamin D levels checked. I remember that was an important one. I ended up having low thyroid hormone, so I got on a thyroid medication, which helped, I think, a lot. Let me think what else. Eating, I mean, I didn't change my diet in any crazy way, but just focusing less on like low fat and carbs and focusing more on healthy fats, proteins, greens, based like a Mediterranean style diet. Focusing on that is really helpful because your body definitely gets stressed out if you're not eating enough healthy protein and fat.
Yeah, especially the healthy fat for your brain function is a huge one.
You mentioned that after you went to a functional doctor, it took about 2 months for all those lifestyle changes to kick in. You felt like a bit disappointed that things weren't working. So for anybody who's trying to turn their life around and get out of this fatigue and things aren't turning around straight away, what advice do you have for them?
Oh yeah, it definitely took more than 2 months. I think 2 months was when I almost felt like I like depuffed. I want to say it was like, it's also about healing your gut, and I could go off about gut health for a while. But I think the most immediate effect you'll feel if you start eating better and taking some supplements is like, you'll feel less bloated, your digestion will improve. Because that's also another symptom of adrenal fatigue and stress in general. It can be definitely disappointing and discouraging if it's like month after month and you're still not feeling better. But I would say give it 6 months. And I mean, if after 6 months and you're making all of these lifestyle changes, changing the way you eat, changing the way you move, getting enough sleep, definitely like talk to a doctor and see what else might be going on. And, you know, it's also about making some hard decisions in your life. Like you mentioned, you're leaving a job that maybe was stressing you out. Like I ended up leaving a job as well while I went through this journey. And that was really tough for sure. But, you know, you got to make some wrong choices or some hard choices, whether it's leaving behind a job or relationship sometimes, to really heal yourself.
Yeah, I can definitely feel that, especially working in, say, mental health and with people who are quite, you know, you have to give a lot of yourself, a lot of your attention and energy. It's one of those things where I'm like, I'm actually starting to resent this. I don't even have energy for myself, and I can't be my best self in that situation. So I think it's time to withdraw. And yeah, to just heal yourself so that you can be the best version of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure you've been working and giving so much of yourself to others when you work in mental health. That's tough.
So for all our listeners who feel tired all the time, right, and think that's normal, because you ask any adult, anyone in their 30s, late 20s, they're going to say, I'm tired. I mean, come on, that's what life is, right? Is that normal? Is there a way that we can live a happy, productive life and not feel tired all the time? I mean, do we have to get used to that?
Great question. Interestingly, I actually wrote a book about sleep, have it right here. So I will go the route and say, yes, I think you can live life and not feel tired all the time, but it's hard. And I know how difficult it is.
And that's melatonin, is it? Your book, Melatonin?
Yeah, I mean, it was not like my idea or anything, but it was almost like assigned to me, but it was super interesting. And I learned so much about sleep and how we're just not sleeping well. Not only are we not sleeping enough, but we're not sleeping well. And obviously my research focused on Americans, not Australians, but most of us are tired during the day. It's like 70% of people feel like they can't function as well as they could during the day. And I think it's due to a lot of factors, but mostly it's like all of the distractions that we have in our life. Like we have our phones, which can keep us up late into the night whether we're watching Netflix or scrolling on Instagram or looking at Twitter. That's so unnatural. And it really messes with our hormone levels, specifically of melatonin, when there's so much light sources around us. And in our modern lives, we have so many different light sources. So I would say read my book. No, I'm kidding. But
no, seriously, it's a good thing to do.
Take a serious look at your sleep routines and they call it sleep hygiene, which is like basically all of the factors that can affect your sleep. Even like maybe it's buying like a better mattress, or making sure that you get blackout shades, or investing in a sound machine. There's so many different factors that can ensure you get better sleep. And hey, I am not, and I may know a lot about it, but I still get really terrible night sleeps every so often. And I feel horrible the next day, versus like a week when I really am better about like keeping my phone away from bed and reading before bed. Like I just feel so much better if I really focus on all of those factors that go into a good night's sleep. So again, it's not easy, but I think it is possible to feel energized every day, and really, just feel healthier and better.
Oh, that sounds like a dream.
Yeah.
It's hard though. It's definitely hard.
I'd love to know, I mean, going from, because I've been in routines and still am to an extent of like exercising every day. And if you go for a run every day, and I know from experience that when you don't go for the run every day, I mean, when running, it releases endorphins, which interact with opiate receptors in a sense, and it gives you feeling good and energized. And you can get trapped into that cycle of, I actually only feel energized when I exercise in the morning. But then to hear you say, I actually had to feel energized throughout the day, I actually had to limit that and reduce the amount that I was expending on exercise and running, and let my body not be in such a state of cortisol all the time. How did you go, I guess, did you feel withdrawals when you started to reduce your running? How did you manage that?
I think at that point I wasn't running as much. I sort of got sick of it. I definitely went through like a running phase. But you know what helped is like doing a lot of yoga. I love yoga, and it can be just as vigorous as a run. But I think it's better on your body, and it's proven to lower cortisol versus raise cortisol, right? And weightlifting, getting into strength training has also really helped. I think it's a way to get those endorphins and to feel that the good parts of exercise and not exhaust you fully.
Yeah, so not going cold turkey on exercise, but kind of substituting it with something that's a bit better.
Yeah, I think it's still go for a run for sure, or like a hike, or like a long walk. I don't know. I mean, I love all of that stuff. I'm definitely not going to tell you not to exercise. You're feeling, and that's cool. That means that you're in good shape if running energizes you. That's awesome.
We would love to keep you in our pocket and take you out every time we need advice, because you just seem so knowledgeable with all the research that you've done. I was just telling Brianna, like I really, really respect people that have some kind of health concerns and then just go down the rabbit hole, do all the research they need to do. I just wish I had you around every time I was like, is this good to eat? Is this not good to eat? But we'll take the next best. We'll take the next best thing.
Well, I am a health coach, so I can work with you actually.
Oh, well, okay.
I did that during my adrenal fatigue journey. I found this program near where I was living and did that because I wanted to be able to do this to help people.
So where can people find you as a health coach?
Well, unfortunately, since I am full-time now with this job, I'm not doing a ton of health coaching, but I will become a health coach at The Well. So you could work with me there. So that's at thewell.com, the-well.com. And we actually do health coaching all over internationally now, thanks to going virtual. So definitely check out The Well on Instagram or on the internet.
And what are some other resources that you would recommend people get their teeth stuck into if they are feeling like they might have adrenal fatigue?
I would definitely recommend looking for some sort of naturopath or functional medicine doctor in your area. Do you guys have a different name for it in Australia, or is it also known as functional medicine?
We have naturopaths, I think just pronunciation slightly differently. But yeah, there's a lot of Chinese medicine people as well. Often it's called complementary medicines or complementary therapies. Exactly.
And, I have actually admittedly not done acupuncture or much of that. I definitely love yoga. Maybe I would definitely suggest to people looking into yoga and trying a few different types of classes and teachers, because I often hear, yoga is not for me, yoga's boring, but like yoga is anything but boring. I feel like if you find the right person,
It's hard. It's such a mental challenge.
For sure. But it's so good for you too mentally to like slow things down. It definitely helped me in my wellness journey because it sort of taught me how to remember how to breathe. And, you know, even if something's like uncomfortable, like you can definitely breathe through it. Yeah, I definitely want to do yoga teacher training at some point. And, you know, I also loved still loves like self-help books. I'm just looking around my apartment right now. I'm like,
Little
I love
triggers.
books. Like this one book, like Journey of the Heart. It's like a meditation every day. So even if you're not a big meditator, like devote some time to like reading a self-help book or a self-development book every morning or something like that. I think all of those little habits can really help you sort of slow down and tune inward and again, get to know your body. Because I think that's another big problem, right? Is like we're also rushing around and we're always on technology. It's like we never actually stop to listen to ourselves and our bodies to sense if something's wrong.
Yeah, I think that's a huge disconnection that we have actually.
Really, yeah. Oh yeah. And I can feel it in myself a lot. And especially lately, I'm like, why am I so obsessed with Instagram? Like there's nothing even that interesting on it. And I just can't stop.
Yeah, it's always that point in a yoga class when you're lying down at the end and you're like, just relax everything. And it's so difficult to get all the tension out of your body. You're just like, you tune into one area and you're like, why am I clenching my arms? And why is my jaw being clenched? I'm like, just relax. You're like, but I don't know how.
Well, it's good you're even aware of that. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm not clenching. And they're like, probably so tight.
Yeah, and like your knuckles are going white. No.
One last thing I wanted to mention is that you spoke about learning to say no to people, and that is a really hard thing people experience. If I mean, when it comes to self-care and looking after your health, it's so hard to fit in the time when everybody's, you're getting pulled left, right, and center for social things, for work, for extracurricular activities. And you experienced this while you moved to a new city. So when you're trying to make new friends and really, get to know people, how do you go about setting those boundaries and saying no when you know it's time for some self-care?
Yes, I'm really not good at it, especially sort of when you're young and single and in a new city. It's really hard to say like, oh no, I'm just gonna stay in on a Friday night and sit on my couch by myself. Like that's not easy to say. So I think it took me like reaching that rock bottom point of like, I need to change something. So it's almost just like, I just got to do this for a little while because I want to feel better. Always remembering like the why behind things. That's a secret from health coaching. It's like finding your motivation. Can really help you do anything that's hard, I think, whether it's saying no to an invitation to go somewhere or getting up and going for a run. Like if you have a why behind it, you're so much more likely to do it, right? And it's not somebody else telling you, that's not your why. It's like your why is for yourself. And I think the pandemic definitely taught us all that like, it's not that bad to miss out on things. Like we all had to be at home. You guys are good to go now in Australia. Lucky you.
Yeah, we've been very fortunate.
At home for the most part. And, it's kind of like we've gotten in a groove with it. And so I think that after this year, it's going to be a lot better, a lot easier for me to say, no, I think I'm good. I think I'm just going to stay home. But yeah, that's another thing that's not super easy. But I think, again, having that motivation behind it, having the why behind it always is helpful.
It's funny the amount of like, I've always been an extroverted person, but since COVID, it's now been like, I'm actually quite introverted. I don't want to go out. Yeah, just like a transformation when you start to realize that you don't have to go to everything. Yes, not going to something might disappoint a person, but they're still going to love you regardless. And, if you can just say, you don't have to give them your full life story, but I just cannot cope with that right now, that people are more understanding and accepting. And I think sometimes just overcoming that self-judgment of needing to be there, needing to please, needing to show up is a lot of the times on ourselves rather than the people around us.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of confrontation. So that's definitely hard for me.
Yeah, it's a big one. And I guess to kind of come to the bit of the finale of our session, the way that we always sign off is to ask our guests if they would like to do a holy trinity, which is to share a gratitude, a brag, and a desire you have at the moment.
I did not prepare for this, by the way.
No. Even better. It'll just, come out of you naturally.
It's lovely when it's on the spot because it's something that it's like doing multiple choice. It's the first thing that comes to you, which is the correct answer.
That is true. I would say gratitude is, I'm feeling grateful for a lot right now, but I'm going to go with, I'm grateful that it's snowing in New York right now. It's beautiful. And it's also snowing in the mountains where I'm going this weekend to ski.
Cool.
I'm very grateful about that. Second one was brag.
Mm-hmm.
I got some great feedback at work the other day, and I think that I've really reached like a really good stride at my work and creating content, and I think people are really respecting my skills at work. So I think I'm very proud of that. And,
cool. Own it. That's awesome.
and then a desire, that's a tough one. I would say a desire would be, I mean, right now I'm looking for a partner in life, a romantic partner. That's like my biggest desire. It's like the only thing that like my life is missing. And it's not missing though.
I hear you, sister.
No, but it's not missing. Like, it's like, I'm so happy and I love my life, but like, I'm ready for that now. I've done everything I want to do on my own and I'm still crushing it on my own, but like, I would like a partner in all of this.
Cool. Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's like, well, I'm so successful in every other area of life. And then not that I'm not successful there, but it's just like, I'm ready to call it in.
Yeah. It'll, it's not going to complete me or anything, but it's like, it would be nice to have.
Yeah. Cool. That's exciting.
Thanks so much for talking to us, taking time out on your Friday afternoon, which is, when the fatigue really sets in after a whole hectic week.
Guys, for Saturday morning, waking up early. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
We're going to put a few links in our comment in the section underneath our podcast of where we can reach you.
Okay.
But what's the best place to reach out to you?
That's if you want people to reach out.
If you do.
I love actually people reaching out to me on Instagram. So it's just my name, which is Locke, L-O-C-K-E, Hughes, H-U-G-H-E-S. You can find me there, and actually I have some links on my site, on my Instagram, to my website, which has links to a bunch of stories I've written on this topic and others. So that's a good
Buy your book, Melatonin.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting to write and hopefully interesting for people to read.
Wonderful. What an accomplishment. Everyone has that dream of, I want to write a book and then life happens, but you did it.
Not my first, or no, hopefully not my last.
Yeah.
Friday brain. Okay.
Oh, good. Thank you so much.
You guys.
Thanks so much. Have an amazing weekend.
Thank you guys. Y'all too.
Cheers.
It was so amazing talking to Locke about adrenal fatigue because, I mean, as you know, Brianna, I am fatigued as fuck this past year, and I've been clamoring to find a reason for it. And I mean, just the way she took her health into her own hands and went to a functional doctor and really did those tests that my doctors are not doing. I'm just having this like light bulb moment, like, there's, I'm going to go out there and really figure out what's going on with me.
Yeah. And it takes, unfortunately, sometimes it takes money, which it's hard to part with, and a lot of time, but it's worth it at the end of the day, just to get yourself back feeling energized, to be able to engage in life to the best abilities. I think it's made me realize that the most consistent thing in my life has probably been my cortisol levels.
I mean, with an anxiety disorder, I'm pretty sure my fight or flight is just 24/7 in action, and what can I do about it? So just hearing like that high cortisol levels, like how much that contributes to poor physical health, I'm just like, oh shit. Like, years and years of having an anxiety disorder. I'm like, oh my God, my body must just be absolutely depleted. It's just really interesting to think about how your mental health and your physical health ties into one another.
Yeah, and come hand in hand. And I think, something with the adrenal fatigue, it's as Locke was saying, it's so under, I guess, recognized in ourselves and the people around us, and knowing how to approach it so that you can put yourself first and allow the people around you to understand that that's where you're at is so important. It's a big challenge I know that I constantly battle with and face, even circumstantially, if it is something that is there, and there's good reason for it. It's about, okay, but how am I going to move forward to rearrange my lifestyle so that this doesn't have to be the way it is? Because it really doesn't, no matter what industry that you're in. And if it is part of the requirements of that job, is that something you really want to be doing? And I think they're some of the bigger questions we need to ask ourselves.
And, fatigue and tiredness is a spectrum. I mean, on one end, we've kind of got where my body is heading towards, which is like crippling fatigue, right? Where it's really, really impeding on your day-to-day functions. But it's a whole spectrum where you can just generally be very high functioning, but you're just never really energized. You're always feeling a bit tired. Everything is taking a bit more energy and you're just not working. You're not really living life to the fullest. And even that requires care for yourself. You don't want it to get to the point where you're really fatigued and not functioning. If you're listening and you're feeling tired and you just think that's normal because you just don't remember a time you weren't like that, this is the perfect time to start intervening in your health and really looking at ways to improve your life. We shouldn't just be dragging ourselves around, getting from A to B, doing our best just to get through the working day and socializing. Like, we all deserve to be thriving and happy and have the energy we had when we were younger.
Yeah. And it makes me realize, how much when there's somebody that you have to do work for, when it's a job, you can pull yourself together, you can do that work. And then it breaks you even more in between. And then you don't have the energy to look after yourself, to do activities that you want just for fun because you're tired, because you're savoring that little bit of whatever's left just to get through the next day of work. And yeah, it's about time that we, I guess, reclaim our energy and ourselves in that area.
Thanks for listening, guys, and we hope it resonated with you on some level. We will have links to resources, and you've got Locke Hughes, her Instagram, and she's got some amazing articles. And her book on melatonin, definitely something worth doing some research on if you're having trouble sleeping, which, hey, like most of us are.
Fingers crossed it's as an audible because I don't have a lot of time to read at the moment, but driving in the car and to listen to something like that I think would be very beneficial. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
Love ya.
Thanks for listening to the Am I Adulting Good podcast. We hope you guys are getting out of it as much as we are and are learning a trick or two about how to adult. Please give us a review and a 5-star rating, like our podcast, and follow our channel on whichever streaming app you're using. It really helps us reach more people and build our community.
Hit us up on Instagram at Am I Adulting Good? Also, remember to send us your holy trinity and share your stories with us at amiadultinggood@gmail.com. Each week, we'll share one of our adulters' emails, and that could be you. Seriously, we love hearing from you. Keep doing your thing, adulters. We love you. We love you.
Am I adulting good?